It is the top of the hour. It is a meaningful mountain moving mindset Monday, and therefore we get to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are and what time it is where you're joining me from. I am in Johannesburg, South Africa. It is the Central Africa time, 6 p.m. on a Monday afternoon is our appointment to this platform where we get to talk about anything and everything that is mindset related. Welcome, welcome. If you are passing by, this is the correct stop. This is exactly where we are in our red room. We are getting grounded today. We are reminding ourselves of who we are and getting grounded, removing ourselves from this suspension that we have been feeling in the last number of months. So my name is Zoliswa Tshetshe. I am a transformation life coach, inspirational speaker, and a published author. And when I come to this platform, and I always say to you that I am just your sister having a conversation with you over a glass of water, which I trust that you have yours in front of you. It is very important, especially today on this day where we're getting to talk about being grounded. As you can see, the theme is red. And we are going to be talking about engage with change today. So welcome, welcome. If it is your first time here, I don't do a monologue. I'm not about that life at all. This is about you and I having a conversation together. You don't need to have any membership card. There is no registration necessary by virtue of the fact that you were passing by and you found yourself in this space. It means that we have a divine appointment. This is the message that is meant for you. We may have thousands of people ultimately watching this video, but at this moment, this message is for you. And I would love to hear your views. I would love for you to comment and say, hi, I'm with you, and agree where you agree, disagree, ask questions, comment, engage with me from wherever you are. This is the new norm, and the new norm says that we can actually connect from the different corners of the world. We don't necessarily have to be under the same roof for us to connect, and this is one of those opportunities. Let us hear, let us see. If there is anyone that has already joined us, we have the producer of the program, Tuned In Conscious Living, saying, good evening, Maizo. Good evening, Madam Producer. Lindelo, good evening. Good afternoon, my mindset advocate. It's afternoon, it's evening, it's morning. It is whatever you want it to be this afternoon or this evening. And we have two listeners. Ganga says, hey, coach, we are here for the Mindset Monday. And indeed, you are welcome to the meaningful mountain moving mindset Monday, and that is where we are. So without further ado, today I hope that our time is going to be enough, because we're going to talk about something that is very important and relevant during this time of our lives, which is change. And how do you manage change in the midst of the external circumstances that are happening? And I'm saying external circumstances for a reason, because everything that is happening tends to be happening in front of our eyes. Our eyes are right here, and things are happening in such a way that we are able to see them with our eyes. And therefore, they are in the external world. But we can't run away from the fact that they have an impact in the inner being, in ourselves, in who we are, which causes some kind of a conflict when we're using to live our lives in a certain way, and we are used to have a certain routine, and we're quite comfortable with the way that things are because we have always done things in a certain way, and suddenly we find ourselves having to change the way that we live our lives as we know it to be. Pindi Lemkwanazi says, good evening, Pindi, and welcome to everyone. I would love to get as much participation and as much commentary as possible today. The first thing to do is to share the video, and I want to be the first person who is leading by example, because I would like as many people as possible to get today's message, whether they watch it now or they do so at a later stage. But I would like as many people as possible to get this message, and therefore let me share it. I've shared it. Please do the same. So change, that is what we're talking about. Hi, Thomas, my friend. You're a blessing to our nation. Thank you so much. You are a blessing that you are here and joining us, and you're about to spread the message to everyone that you come across from now on. Now, we're talking about a change. A change is nothing other than doing things differently from the way that they were done. So many times, change occurs when we set it out intentionally. So we plan for change, especially in organizations. There would be a time where you would say, let's relook at what is happening around us and see if everything is still fit for purpose. Let us see if there's an opportunity to do things differently. And that is an intentional change, a deliberate change that is based on the desire to do things differently. So it's to spiral upwards and to move to the next level of an organizational life. Now, whatever principles that are applicable to organizations are in fact applicable to ourselves as well. And this is something that I usually say. To say that I am an expert in management. I've been a senior manager for as long as I can remember, so for the past 100 years. And I have learned that I have applied so many relevant principles in the external world, which without really taking the benefit that they hold and using them on myself, so that I could see the benefits that I have been able to observe in the external world. And that is why you'll notice that now and again I would make examples about organizations, because that is, corporate is where I've spent a large number of my years alive, and business as well. So I am adopting those principles and bringing them closer to you, because you are likely to be familiar with them by virtue of the fact that for the people that do 9 to 5 or the people that are running businesses, you actually do these things whether you are aware of them or not. So we are used to this thing that is called the intentional change. Now, the intentional change does happen in your own life as well, and we observe it a lot towards the end of the year when we are preparing the resolutions, the so-called resolutions for the beginning of the year. Remember last year everyone was saying 2020 is my year, and this year we just had to go in quietly into 2021, like shh, let no one hear you that you are coming in quietly. So for the first time we actually changed the approach in terms of how we ease ourselves into a new year. But generally, the period of setting resolutions, or the period of just setting yourself goals, is the area where you, that is the time that you set intentional changes that you would like to happen in your life. Why is change being invited in our lives? Change is usually invited because you realize, you recognize that you have more potential to move to the next stage of your life. So you just want to continue spiraling upwards, because that is exactly what what being alive means. It says that you don't stay on that the straight line that I spoke about yesterday, the straight line of a life that has lost the body. You move, you dance. And so you look at your life and you're saying, I am satisfied with things as they are, but I want to move over to the next stage. So let me create a change. Or you're saying, I'm not satisfied with things as they are in a certain aspect of my life, and therefore let me create a change. And that is how changes happen when they are deliberate. So 2020 came, and 2021. Did I say 2021? That didn't sound right. 2020 didn't win. But 2020 came, and 2021 followed on the same path as 2020, with all the changes that we never expected coming our way. We felt like we're being bombarded by so much change that is happening that we don't even get given time to absorb the new changes, get used to the new reality before we are required to just palate a new one, stomach another one. So what happens in a situation where change is, it's just happening so quickly as it does in the space that we're in now. It has become the only constant in the true sense of the word. Everything else is changing. It's just somersaulting like that. And the only thing that we would say is a constant is change itself. So what do we do in a situation like that? Before I move over to Lesa's don't touch anything. Yes, that was the mood as we were easing ourselves into 2021. Don't touch anything, because we touched a whole lot of things in 2020 and we broke things in the process. Maybe, I don't know. Thank you for that reminder, Tule. And Pindi says, we sneaked into 2021. We were sneaking. It's like we're looking to who's watching. Okay, I don't see anyone, so maybe no one is seeing me. Let me get into 2021 quickly. That's what we have done. But changes are continuing in 2021, just like we have observed them in the year 2020. So I want to remind you of something that you are familiar with, whether you have given yourself time to absorb it, whether you have ever thought about it, engaged with it or not. This is an opportunity. If you've done it before, let's do it again. If you have never done it before, well, it's a perfect opportunity to do it now. And it is what we call the serenity prayer. So the serenity prayer, reminder, anybody? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. The courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. So it's the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change those that I can, and the wisdom to distinguish between the two. Now, talking about the serenity to accept, today we're going to talk about, let me just say it up front now, that the tips, the takeaway, the nuggets of this session are going to be the AEIOU tips on managing change. AEIOU tips on managing change. That is what we are going to be talking about, or taking home and going to apply in these circumstances. And I'm not talking about change in the organizational context. I would be using different principles if we were in that. I'm talking about you. You are the most important person in my life right now. I'm talking about you. As you talk about all the other people and all the other things that are around you, when was the last time you ever allowed yourself to talk about you? These three fingers, as you are pointing one finger at somebody else, these three fingers are the subject of the day. This is where I talk about myself, you talk about yourself, we talk about ourselves before we can talk about anybody else. So let us work on ourselves. Let us apply these principles on ourselves. It also gives us an opportunity to see if they work or not before we can tell other people, our loved ones, our children, our siblings, other people that we instruct or give guidance to as to what they need to do. Now, when we, Linda says, shh, COVID must find out I'm still here, or mustn't find out I'm still here. Okay, Lee, when you resist change, you resist the fundamental process of life, and invariably you'll invite all kinds of suffering, and that's Sadhguru. Change resistance. And I love that. I'm going to make reference to that statement. Thank you, Lee, for that. It is very relevant. Now, taking you back to the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. It is very important to accept that some of the things that are happening around you are of no control. You have no control over those. You are not going to be able to unring the bell. They have happened. They have happened. You will not be able to change anything in retrospect. Be aware, recognize, and actually be comfortable with the fact that there are certain things that you cannot change. And when you cannot change anything, trying to worry about something that you cannot change is actually insanity, says me now. This is not Albert Einstein at all. It's not going to help you to worry about something that you are aware that you cannot change, because worrying is not supportive to you. Instead, it is going to be destructive. So that already takes us to tip number 1, because you are probably sitting there and saying, Zoliswa, are you telling me that I should not care about the fact that things are happening regardless of how I feel? I should just have this carefree attitude towards life? And my answer is to the contrary. I'm not saying that don't care about it. I'm saying if you're going to worry and wallow over pity about what has happened when you cannot change it, that is not going to be supportive to you. The first tip, which is the A of the AEIOU, these are now the basics, the AEIOU tips of change, is adapt. Adapt is what is required of you. So I hear you asking, what do I mean by adapt? Lee says flexibility, to be able to adjust to the change. We're speaking the same language here, Lee. That's exactly what I mean. Be able to adjust. Adjusting means you are actually switching things on and off like that, in such a way that they are in tune or they are in line with what is happening on the other side, and they can connect and communicate accordingly. Adapt, meaning that if you have always done things in a certain way, and the environment that you find yourself in does not allow you to continue along the lines that you have always continued on, then the expectation is that one of these two parties needs to create a change, needs to display a change at least. Now, you have no control. We have already said that this is the part about the serenity. You have no control over what is happening. Your part, you've done it all, and now you are just standing when it comes to this example that we're talking about, where you have no control over its change. Then you change yourself. You allow the concentration that you have and the process to be that of an inside out approach. So you work on yourself in such a way that you create a fluid state that will allow you to look at this external environment in such a manner that you are able to cope. Let's say the external environment that we are talking about is death, and you know that you don't have power to raise a loved one from death. I'm using the example of death because this is something that really has been bombarding us in the last year, just over a year now. And before you have finished grieving for this one, then there's another one. You are left with remnants of grief, and then there's a third and a fourth one. Then you are sitting with all of this backlog of emotions that have not been expressed, that have not been processed. And we know very well that if you do not express your emotions, in other words, if you suppress your emotions, they are likely to come back in the form of a depression. So expression is an outlet to avoid suppression, which later is likely to lead to depression. But now we don't have time. Time is of essence, is of the essence in situations of this nature. But we do not have time for the sufficient expression. So we end up having to quickly suppress. And we know that the mental well-being issues of depression are likely to arise at a later stage, especially if we are not consciously aware of how to manage ourselves in the midst of uncontrollable situations. We may not be able to manage the external environment, but we in that situation need to manage ourselves. So when we talk about change management, we are not necessarily saying that we manipulate what is happening to suit us. We, sometimes and many times, more often than not, especially in the context of the example that I'm using here today, we have to change ourselves. We need to manage ourselves so that we can find a way of coping with the circumstances as they are in the external environment. Because really, essentially, the external circumstances as they are in the external environment are our reality, but we create our reality based on how we look at it. We will not be able to change the facts, but we are always able to change the truth, regardless of what the facts are saying to us in the external environment. And we know where the truth comes from, because the truth comes from the that inner part of the onion. When you have peeled everything and you are trying to understand where this onion comes from, and then right in the center, you find nothing. That is exactly where the source of the truth lies at, in that inner space, the depth of who you are, that pillar, that invisible pillar of where you are. That is the source of the truth, and that is where we find our answers. And that is the report that we believe, regardless of what is happening in the external world around us. Lee says, in these times, we need to be able to recover quickly and back into shape. Before you know, it's like you have to hit the ground running, because you don't know when next you are going to have to run. That's exactly what is happening. And we can't run away from the fact that it is difficult. It's hard. It's hard because nobody is expecting this to happen. We have not always lived our lives like this. So it is a change that requires of us to adapt. It's a change that requires of us to adjust our attitudes, adjust ourselves in such a way that we allow ourselves to cope with the external environment. This reminds me of the mayor's discussion August last year on resilience. Yes, hey, we are going to have the mayor's discussions again coming this year. Watch this space, follow us, and you will find more about what that is all about. If you have never been on this page before and you don't know what the mayor's corner is all about. So, adapt. That is tip number one of the AEIOU of change, managing change in circumstances of this nature. And then the second one, now let us go to the serenity prayer once again. We said that God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. They are what they are, accept. Because if you do not accept, now, back in the day when I was a psychology student, there was a model of grief by Kubler, someone. And this model said that the first step is shock and disbelief, denial, and then it's all of those are together. So the shock, disbelief, what happens immediately, and then the first step is denial, to say, no, it has not happened. It cannot be. No, I'm dreaming. And they pinch yourself saying, no, it hasn't happened. And then the following step is the anger, to say, how dare it happens? Why does it happen to me? Why this one? Why me? And then it's followed by a stage that is called bargaining, where you say, oh, if only God, whoever you believe in, the higher power that I believe in, I call it God. So you would say, God, if you change the situation, this is what I will do. I will probably just commit to you and do whatever you want me to do. I will give you all the pairs of shoes that I have, whatever it is. So that is called bargaining, when you want to change the situation. And the fourth step is depression. This is now when you realize that it's as if God is not listening. It's as if you've been praying or you've been pahlaing. What is to pahla? That thing. You've been doing all of the rituals that are normally done when you want the rain to come or when you want answers to come your way, but you are not receiving the favorable answer, the expected answer as you'd like it to be. Then you feel depressed. You go into that state of depression. Now I'm using the word depression in this context for the second time. I spoke about depression when I said we need the expression of certain emotions, because if we do not do the expression, that means that we are suppressing. That means we are getting into a state of suppression. Then later on, this situation will reveal, it will surface, it will come back in the form of a depression, which is a mental illness. So it's suppression when you consciously put it aside and say, I don't have time for this because there's just a whole lot that is happening. And it is repression when you unconsciously put it away. You're not aware of it, but your subconscious mind is just putting it away to protect you because you are unable to deal with it. You don't have the capacity to deal with it at this stage. But it's likely to come back in the form of a depression. Now we need to avoid that. Now, in this case, the model of grief, I said denial, anger, bargaining, depression. When you get over the depression phase, coming out of the depression phase is through the final stage, which is called acceptance. Now, what did the serenity prayer say? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Meaning, let me move beyond the depression phase. Let me accept and have peace with the fact that things are the way that they are. And as they are the way that they are, let me then shift my attention. I acknowledge that they are the way that they are, and I allow myself to adapt to the situation as it is because I really do not have an option. And for as long as I am alive, it is important that I adapt because failure to adapt, I have two options, one of two options, adapt or die. But I choose to be alive because I still have life in my veins. I therefore find a way of adapting. So that is tip number one. AEIOU tip number one, adapt. Lindela says, oh yes, acceptance is the key. The conditions inside us determine how we're going to spring back or adjust and where we are going to land in that adjustment. That is the inner world, which is exactly what I meant when I said, Lee, let us work on ourselves when we are unable to control what is happening in the external world. Laftonson says, Thomas, you took the words right out of my mouth, and that is when Thomas was saying, I can't see Thomas's message now anymore. Okay, but Thomas said something. Sorry that some of the comments have now disappeared. I'm using a small screen here today. And so, A is adapt. E is engage with change. Remember, today's topic of Mindset Monday is actually entitled Engage with Change. So what the heck does engaging with change mean? Engage with change. When you engage someone or you engage something, it means that you are actually bringing that thing closer to you and you are interacting with him or her or it. You are interacting. So you don't just fold your arms and be like, I'm engaged. It doesn't work that way. Engaging means you get closer to this entity, whether it is a person or something, in such a way that you get to understand it better. You know, when you are engaged, you are going to be married to someone. And if you're going to be married to someone, you better know what they are all about. So this is the moment when you spend more time with them, trying to get to know them more, because you're going to be spending the rest of your life together, or the rest of your contract together, whichever you decide to go for. So Lindela says, oh yeah, you try that, engage, you marry it. Engage. Oh, Thomas said that you are a blessing to our nation. How could that comment disappear up there? Thank you so much for that reminder, Laftonson, and thank you, Thomas, as well. Yes, we are each other. You engage, you connect with it, you become naked in front of this other entity that you are engaging with. You want it to know you better. You want to know it better. So you engage with this change. You seek to understand what this change is all about. What does it mean to you? You don't just fold your arms as if it is not going to affect you. Because remember, it is going to continue spiraling, because we said the only constant that there is in the external world is change itself. Everything else is busy somersaulting. Change stays constant. But change presents all of these differences, all of these the somersault effects that we are observing in and around us. So you engage with it, you connect, you become active, you become alive, you become present in your life. Because if you don't do that, this change that is happening is going to give you, its effects on you are going to be by default. And that is the last thing that you want. You're not going to say, I will just accept whatever comes my way. Who are you lying to? You are not expecting whatever comes your way to come your way. I saw a post of someone that was on one of the social media platforms not too long ago, and the person was saying, someone please help me out. I need a job. Nokuba injani, any kind of a job. And somebody who is helpful responded to the post and said there are three positions of doctors at such and such hospital in one of the areas in the Eastern Cape. Is that what the person was looking for? Is the person qualified to become a doctor? It was some kind of a joke to the other people that were commenting. But the lesson that I learned from there was we actually need to be intentional about what we are seeking as an outcome, even in the midst of change. Just because change is happening, we don't just say, okay, nzobona khona, or I will just see when it happens. Continue being aligned, continue being in search of the practical application of your mission under the current circumstances, so that you continue driving and directing your own energy towards the outcome that you are seeking to manifest, or you are seeking to observe manifesting in front of you. So engage with change. Don't just let change happen to you, but be active in such a way that you allow yourself to be the vessel unto the change's honor. That honor must happen through you. Open yourself up to be part of the active participants in this change, because then in that way it's going to be easier for you to cope with that change. You know, when you know that you have done something, when you know that it has not been done to you, then you shift away from the victim stage or the victim mentality, the victimhood, to the stage of being the cause of what has happened. And when you have caused something, we all know that we take responsibility. Under normal circumstances, we take responsibility when we are the cause of something. So that gives us power. It helps us to cope. It helps us not to have to suppress all of these emotions, because now we're expressing things, we're doing something about what is affecting us. We're not just being in effect, but we know that whatever it is that is happening, we have had a hand on it to the extent that we are able to change that part. Remember, the things that we cannot change, we have asked for the serenity to accept those things as they are. We're now talking about the courage to change those things that we can. And that is where we are engaging with the things that we can, because now we are seeking to develop that courage, to boost that courage so that we can create a change. A, adapt. B, A-E, engage with change. The third one is I, and that is identify. Identify what this means to you. Identify opportunities where you can take action. Identify what is the best that can come out of this situation. Identify those areas of your life that you need to discard, that are no longer relevant as a result of this change. Identify the seeds that you can use so that you can then plant something new, a new harvest that is relevant to the future that you are seeking to produce or to develop. So when you identify something, you have to look. Many times We don't see opportunities that are there because we have not looked. So for us to observe something and capitalize on it, we need to give ourselves time to look at what is this? What does this mean to me? What is it that I can take out of this situation? And just identify, name the blessings, count the blessings, name them one by one in the midst of everything. Because when you name those blessings, and I'm using the word blessings loosely here, then you are going to find that you actually have something to be to be grateful for, to express gratitude for. Gratitude, my love, a state of consciousness that I love, because gratitude acknowledges that we have had power that has carried us so far. And it also reminds us that the same power that has gotten us where we are today is likely to carry us to the next level. So gratitude comes when we identify the possibilities that can take us to the next level. You are not going to identify them when you are in your sleep. You are not going to identify them when you close your eyes and are not engaging with what is around you. You have to first adapt, followed by engaging with the situation as it stands, as opposed to being distant from it. And that is where you are going to identify a diamond in the midst of the coals. Is going to show up for you. And when you have identified it, it's well and good to identify it. But if you don't do anything, having identified, if you do not do anything about that possibility that you have identified, then it's not, nothing is going to happen. You can wish all you want, you can dream all you want. If you don't wake up and build that dream, then nothing is going to happen. If you do not wake up and take the ideas that came as you were wishing and put them into some kind of an implementation to close the gap between where you are and where the wish is at this stage, then you're not going to get anything. So having identified, we move now to the O, AEIOU, tips of change management. We move to the O, and the O is occupy. Remember that the Miss Universe said that you need to occupy your own space and cement yourself, concretize yourself in it. So having identified something, occupy, make it yours. Occupying something means that you are making your presence felt, seen, sensed in a certain area. So you are basically operating, in other words, you are operating in a certain space. You're saying that this is my space. This is what I do in this space. This is how I express my being in this space, be it a space of innovation, be it a space of anything really, but you identify your place in this new world. I remember, this is a story that I've told before. A friend of mine told me the story. They were sitting around the dinner table with the extended family, and they had a 6-year-old nephew, 6-year-old nephew that was just interfering with the conversation of the adults, the parents. And this 6-year-old's father says to him, so and so, keep quiet, you must know your place in this world. And of course, the child keeps quiet, continues with the food. And later on, as they are washing the dishes with the older cousin in the kitchen, it appears that he had been thinking about this statement that his father had said. So he says to his older cousin, so and so, where's my place in this world? So he had been thinking. He wanted to occupy his place in the world, but he needed to know what his place is in the world, because his father said, know your place in this world. Now, you are not going to occupy your place in this world if you do not know, because even when you see that place, you are likely to pass by, or let it pass you by, because you do not know that this is your place in the world. So how do you identify the place that is yours in the world? There are two things that we're not going to be talking about them in detail today, hopefully on another day, but you're more than welcome to go to Dr. Google or just find out from within you through different processes as to what this means, because this really, the conversation is between the two of you for a reason today. So the first one is the purpose. Why are you alive in the first place? With everything that we have seen happening around us, why are you still alive today? What could be the purpose of your life? What could be the purpose of your life? Find that out. And having found that out, you will then identify areas where you can express the mission. Areas where you can say, okay, now that I know what the purpose of my life is, I have this vision, which is an audacious, big, crazy dream that I have about how I can see myself carrying out the purpose that I am, and then I narrow it down to certain goals, certain faculties of my life. We are not going to be going into detail in that space today, but it's important that you know who you are, why you are breathing our oxygen, which is not sufficient, clean oxygen, which is not sufficient at this stage. Justify your existence. Understand who you are and why you are in this planet right now. Having understood why you are in this planet, then it's going to be easier for you to open all your senses wide. Eyes, ears, nose, all of them. Open yourself up to those opportunities in such a way that you identify them and you occupy the one that is relevant to you. And after occupying it, Lee says, hey, Coach Zoe, how about better the devil you know? The devil you know is gone. And the new devil is here. And maybe that devil is not even a devil. It could be the extreme opposite of the paradigm that we used to call devil. But how are you going to know? You will know when you engage. It is only when you engage that you are going to know that this is the kind of an animal that I am dealing with now. I love that comment so much. Thank you, Lee. Lee again says, I'm reminded of what Love said last week about not waking up tomorrow. I wonder how much will we then be willing to accept change if we knew that we will not be waking up tomorrow. If this was your very last day, you had the opportunity to be told that this is your last day, would you still continue resisting change as you are doing? Or would you want to continue along a new path that is going to allow you to live your life to the full? There is a saying by someone, I can't remember now who's the author of the quote, and I may also be paraphrasing it, that says that the people that are afraid of death were afraid to live in the first place. They were afraid of life. They did not live to the full. So it's nothing new that we are afraid of death, because we have always been afraid of life. So the common denominator here that needs to be addressed is fear. Whether it is the fear of life or whether it is the fear of death is irrelevant. It is immaterial. It is the fear and the cause of fear. And that is the area that we should be looking at. What holds us back from living our lives to the full and not allowing ourselves to open up to changes that come to our peripheries, so that we can then adjust, adapt, engage, identify, occupy all of these the places that we are meant to take over as we should. And the fifth step, or the fifth tip, is having adapted, engaged, identified, occupied. Now we uncover something new. Now, when we uncover something, it means that it was there. It was just covered. There is nothing new. Everything that we have come across today, that we're ever going to come across, has always been there. We just did not know it. So uncovering means that we have opened our senses and we became conscious of something that we were not conscious of before. So it means that we become aware. It means we wake up. This is an awakening to something that was there. When you are sleeping and you are not conscious of what's happening in the external world, it does not mean that things are not happening in the external world. It just means that you are sleeping. You are asleep. Whenever you wake up, you will find that whatever that you were not conscious to continues. It doesn't mean that you hold time back, you hold activity back just because you are fast asleep. No. Activity, consciousness carries on. You wake up to it. So the work that needs to be done has got to be done by you and in you. And that is how you begin to uncover new things that are going to take you forward in the space of managing this new change as we see it. So those are the tips that I would like to leave you with today. We spoke about the serenity prayer, and I said that, remember, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. All of those things that you cannot change, find a way, time and space, to allow yourself to let them go, to surrender to the fact that they are, and you cannot unring the bell. You cannot do anything in retrospect. It doesn't help to say could have, should have, would have, because at this stage we are where we are. Whatever has been, has been. But when it comes to the others that you can change, we are asking for the courage to change the things that we can. There is a difference, some gap between the fear and the courage, which if you attend my the 2-hour virtual workshop on boosting self-confidence through inner management, we get a little glimpse of it. Between fear and courage, there are certain things that have to happen then. Because when you have the courage to change that, those things that you can, it means that you have dealt with the fear. Remember what I said, it's not so much the fear of death. It is usually the fear of life itself as well. But we are not talking about the fear today. And we said then the wisdom to know the difference, to distinguish between the two, which is the things you can change and those that you cannot change. And I said the tips that I'm giving, the takeaway tips that I am giving today, which I wish you could apply in your life between now and next week on Monday, on Mindset Monday, are AEIOU of change management in the current circumstances. And those are A, adapt, E, engage, I, identify, O, occupy, and U, uncover. Final comments. Oh yes, the engagement, that is Lee. Lee also says, I believe that change doesn't change you, it reveals you. I love that. You manage the change to reveal that which has been covered in you. Here's uncovering coming up again. And Tule says, wow, amazing. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, everyone. I trust that whatever it is that we have spoken about here today has been helpful to you, and that you will allow it to manifest itself in one way or the other in your life. Change is not going anywhere. We have the responsibility. We are the people that have to do something in us so as to cope with the changes as we see them. Thank you. Adapt, engage, identify, occupy, uncover. Nicely summarized there by Pindile. Those are the tools for today, or rather the tools for this week as we deal with the change management. Accept is coming up again for me as a value. Accept, and that's exactly what we started talking about in the serenity prayer. Accept the things you cannot change. Lee says, thanks, my Zoe. Thank you very much, everyone. Remember, forgive yourself. If you have not applied these principles before because you were not aware of them, it's okay. You cannot unring the bell. You can't go backwards. You can't apply anything in retrospect. Just forgive yourself and say, up until now, I had acted in a certain way. But from now on, I commit that I'm going to do things differently, because this is only the beginning as we know it. And of course, we usually say, Love Tsinkzin says, I saw your heart and breathe out the words of inspiration. Thank you. Thank you so much. And of course, as we usually say, this is just the beginning, and the best is yet to come. See you again next week.